Welcome to the NCDWI Guide podcast, where defenders of the Constitution assemble to prepare for courtroom battle and firm owners gather to develop marketing strategies that will revolutionize the practice of criminal defense. Here's your host, the NCDWI guy, Jake Minnick.
Hello, fellow freedom fighters, and welcome to episode 205 of the NCDWI Guy podcast. On today's episode, I have my good friend Josh Nielsen on the podcast, continuing the Warriors on the Battlefield series, highlighting some of the amazing young leaders in criminal defense in North Carolina. Josh operates right down the road from me, with his headquarters being in beautiful Waynesville, North Carolina, where I grew up. He practices in Haywood County, but covers a lot of distance, handling all types of criminal matters in the western part of the state. But I would say particularly concentrating on high level, high felony, high profile cases. Josh is an incredible lawyer. He is an incredible business person. Josh and I had the opportunity very briefly a number of years back to work together for a short period of time, and we talk about that on the podcast today. Josh is a very dear friend, somebody I greatly admire here in the local legal community, and very excited to share this conversation with you all. Well, Josh, I am pumped to have you on the show. We've been friends for a long time and gotten to see each other in action in court. So it's always nice to have like a local person on the podcast where there's a little bit more shared experience and knowledge. And we briefly worked together for a short period of time. So there's that kind of connection. But I mean, just a lot of respect for everything that you have done in Western North Carolina, from building your firm, and your reputation in the courtroom is extremely high with everybody that I have talked to. So very excited to have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Jake. I appreciate it.
So I guess to kind of go back in time here, Josh, we're gonna go back into the pre-law school days. What was it that kind of, as a background to where we're headed, got you interested in law in the first place, and then ultimately led down the path towards criminal defense?
I think when I was a kid, my parents always told me I should be a lawyer because I would never not argue with them on everything. And originally I just wanted to be a ski bum and be a chef at night, but my mom that career, fortunately, I guess. She said that's probably a bad idea by the time I want to have kids and hit 40. So I do have kids and I'm approaching 40. And so looking back, life's really good now. And so mom was probably right. So, listen to your mom, I guess, is the moral of that story. But, getting into criminal defense, that was kind of always easy for me. I kind of always imagined I would be in the prosecutor's office. Ironically, I interned 2 or 3 times for Jeff Hunt down in Henderson, Polk in Transylvania, and I have a lot of really interesting, fun stories from interning there in those offices with some of those old school judges like Judge David Fox. I knew I said I wouldn't go into things about judges, but oh my God, if anyone has ever been in front of Judge Fox, then you probably know, or I might have told you the stories of his extreme lack of filter on his mouth, so to speak. But I interned a lot with prosecutors' offices, and after law school, I think I went, and we had nationally, it was the highest entering class for law schools in the nation, because it was right after 2008. I entered in 2009, I think, and so it was a lot of people, like adults, were going back to school. So it was really competitive, and there was a lot of a huge graduating class nationally. And so when we got out, I was originally going to go back and work for Henderson County DA's office, and I wound up accepting a position out west in Jackson County a week before Jeff Hunt sent me a letter offering me a position down in Henderson County. And so that's kind of how I wound up doing what I do. If that letter from Jeff had come a week beforehand, I might have still wound up being a defense lawyer at the end of the day, but certainly would have been a different path to get
Yeah.
there. So, but I love what I do. I love defense work. To me, it's the most fun you can have as an attorney.
Yeah.
The cases you see, the fascinating fact patterns, and just sometimes very humorous videos you get to watch from law enforcement body cams or otherwise, or just some of the crazy stuff you get to hear and see. It seems to be more or less coming out of criminal law. And so, in terms of the gambit of things that you can encounter as an attorney, I think criminal law for me is the most exciting. We do a little bit of family law, and I certainly enjoy helping family law clients, and their cases are always extremely important because for all of us, there's probably nothing more important than our family. And so, there's oftentimes a big overlap between family and criminal law, and we see that all the time. Like right before this podcast, I was working with a family law client, and there's situations there with forensic interviews of the child and certain types of abuse, and so all the experience that we get on the criminal defense side, and I've watched probably over 100 forensic interviews at this point and used experts in that field. So it's interesting to see, I guess, the overlap and interplay between those two
Yeah.
areas of law. But criminal defense has always just been what I was drawn to. I love jury trials. I love getting. I know Jake's. I know you've done a lot of them, but I think for any of us who really love defense work, it's the most fun you can
Oh
have
yeah.
is trying to
100%.
get 12 people in a box to acquit your client or
Yeah.
to find some issue. And it's just kind of magical because for however long you got those people and can keep their attention, you've got them.
Yeah.
And there's nothing like keeping a jury out for a day and a half while they really deliberated. That it's really exciting, I guess. So that's the most fun that I think I can have as an attorney. I really couldn't imagine doing any kind of other legal work. At least for me, it's just the only choice. So.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And I think couple of like just different thoughts on that kind of background. One thing is I think it can be easy on the rough days as in whatever field you are, but certainly like in my experience as a criminal defense lawyer, it's easy on the bad days to be like, man, I just wish I would have done something else. And then like reality setbacks in, and it's like been super lucky to be able to do what we are doing, even just like kind of the background with, wanting to potentially be in the restaurant industry as a chef. And there's different thoughts of, kind of where else could my life have gone on my end regularly. But then, I talk with somebody that's, let's say, in that industry, and it's like, they're getting off work at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Weekends are the busy time. And there's people in construction, and that was one of the draws. Like when I was growing up, I was like, I would just like to be outside working. That would be like a dream job. And like looking back, I'm like, what the heck was I thinking? That would be awful.
Yeah, no,
Just,
I'm 40 or 26 right
yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Crazy
so it's
world of
it's definitely one of those things that just going into the liveliness of the characters that we get to deal with, and what is the awesome opportunity to be in front of a jury. There's just something truly special about that. So again, I think it's just good to hear that kind of background and reflection, because I think again, even though most of us are going to experience those bad days, it really is such a amazing profession to be a part of.
Yeah, it is. And I guess for me, I'm really fortunate that I have a lot of other practitioner friends.
Yes.
And a lot of us are solo, but I've got a couple that we'll call and talk probably once or twice a day sometimes, because it's nice just to have someone to check in and
Yeah.
just say like, how's one of my friends will call me, is like, how's your day going today? Mine's shit, and just go
Yeah.
start complaining.
Yeah.
But because it's like when you're solo, right? And like you're not solo anymore, but for a lot of us, it's like there is nobody to really talk to. Like you can talk to
Yes.
people, in court, and you'll see a lot of your colleagues and friends there, and you'll get to have those conversations. But I mean, to have like someone who's actually just a fellow practitioner and friend, and to know, it's really hard, I guess, when you're solo, right? To know you got like a huge win. Like yesterday, we went from like a B1 felony down to a total of 41 months.
Wow.
So from 25 to 30 years was what was hanging over the head, and then dropping it down to 41 months. And there's really no one else, like your client may or may not understand or
Yeah,
appreciate
I think
the
clients do not
value that
appreciate that. I think that they're
they're
still
going, so
like,
I have to
man.
go, it's like, there's like 41 months. I'm like, yes, but we shaved off like 22 years here, man. And you confessed. So it's like, I can't do any better than that. But yeah, it's nice to have like, people that you like to work with or in the community who
Yeah.
kind of get like those wins, because there's really no one else to like share it with, right? Like
Yeah.
I guess you could do a blog or do these awesome podcasts like you do, but for a lot of us, like we don't really have like an outlet to say like, hey, like, to have someone just pat us on the back and say, hey, you did a great job, or man, that sucks, or whatever it is. It's nice to have, one thing I like about at least the lawyers in Western North Carolina, I'm sure that they're like this throughout the country probably, but a lot of the criminal defense guys are by themselves. And so having kind of like a nice tight network of friends or colleagues to kind of support you is really important for me. And it's nice to have, I think, for all of us. So
Yeah, I mean, in the, Haywood and Western counties, there is a real awesome bar. And I think that that is such a wonderful thing to have, and I do wonder if, because it's in a kind of smaller geographical region, like, population wise, if that doesn't maybe contribute to a little bit more of a kind of collegial sense, people that have either grown up there, really kind of know the local area really well, that have, roots in that area, and kind of are very much like interested in the community side of things. But yeah, Haywood has kind of like a special bar, in my opinion. I grew up in Waynesville, so I'm probably biased to some extent. And
I was gonna say, did you grow up over here?
so, but it's, I love the bar in Asheville. There's some great bars across the state, but Haywood, there is just there's a real sense of community between lawyers, checking in with one another and on one another, and just within the courtroom, sharing in each other's victories. There's been multiple times where I've either kind of given a either actual or proverbial high five to somebody else, in the courtroom, and vice versa. And it's just a great place to practice from that perspective. And I also think, for whatever reason, that's kind of been contained in the judge's office out there as well. It seems like a great group of judges, in terms of being, generally speaking, very concerned with the well-being of the lawyers that are in the bar. District court judges, I'm specifically speaking about, because I don't have as much experience with Superior Court out there. But that's also been like such a good blessing to have.
I grew up in Henderson County, and like I got telling you earlier, like I went and interned multiple times, with the Henderson DA's office, and I'll still take cases down there. And I still have friends in the DA's office and a couple other attorneys in the bar down there that I really like. But Henderson and I guess Haywood is at one further extreme, and then you have Henderson, Polk, Transylvania, and then Asheville's kind of in the middle to me in terms of the collegialness of like the bar
Yeah.
and judges. Like you picked up on something that is my favorite thing about this district, because I've thought about moving my primary point of business to like Buncombe, where there's more clients, there's more money, there's more people who can afford you, and you have more people from rural areas like this who come to the bigger city to get the more expensive, better trained, or more experienced attorneys. But the bench here is honestly what's kind of kept me. Like I
Yeah.
have judges who will text me and just like say like, hey, you coming to court? Is everything okay? or how much time do you need to get here? And like they will bend over backwards to make sure that they accommodate, to the extent possible, right? Like, what all the lawyers here need, and they really consider who we are as people and as well as practitioners, which is kind of a dual-edged sword. Luckily for me, I think I've done a good job being a practitioner here, and so I'd like to think I've cultivated a level of respect with both the colleagues that I have as well as the bench. But certainly that can kind of cut both ways. So like if the judge knows that you were out drinking the last night or something, you not cut you as much slack the next day, right? Um, but yeah, the judges here are amazing, and I'm not saying anything bad about the bar or the bench down in Henderson, Polk, Transylvania by any stretch. It's just been my experience that bar down there, Henderson, Polk, Transylvania, has always been since I was a kid and I interned there. I just remember seeing all the lawyers in that little back room in Henderson County conference room, and they all, the outsiders, like the guys from Buncombe or from wherever the heck else, it was like you were definitely going last, and like,
yes.
you would get home cooked down
Yeah.
there so much quicker than you would get anytime in Asheville or anytime out here. Like I've watched our bench treat, any lawyer who comes in there with the utmost kindness and respect.
Yeah.
They try and get lawyers who are from out of district out of there before us locals.
I've seen that multiple times. Yeah.
Because they understand this lawyer drove a really long way just to come here for like a 10-minute quick hearing, and they want to get them back on the road. And the bar here doesn't throw a fit about it. Like we get it because we drive. Like, I know before you got to where you are with being so successful in your firm, me and you would be
road warriors.
Yeah, I think I still average, probably just 35,000 miles a year, just in between counties and courts. And it wears you out, but it's fun to some level because you get to, at least it's pretty here. You're not stuck in traffic for an hour. At least the hour you spend in the car, you're driving through beautiful mountains, or you get to see prettier things. But it does start to wear you out after a while, and it's kind of those relationships and knowing that at the end of this really long drive, I'm going to litigate a case against a lawyer that I actually genuinely like as a person in front of a judge that I genuinely like to see on the bench. And whatever the outcome is almost, it's not irrelevant. Like we want to win for our client, but it makes the drive worth the outcome, whatever that outcome is. And I think that's the fortunate thing about this part of the state is we have such a great collegiate group of people who all kind of strive together instead of
no, I agree. And I think I think put in our notes, let's stay clear of the e-courts conversation just because that's been like so much on the agenda recently. But without kind of directly going into that, I think one of the benefits of the way that the judges seem to support both the local bar but also one another, like it's very routine when I'm out in Haywood County doing a case to see one of the other judges coming in from like next door to check in, say, hey, how's everything going? Do you guys need some like help, support? There's a very good like culture within the judge's office. And I think that has honestly, particularly in Wake and Mecklenburg, these kind of like massive jurisdictions with who knows how many judges on the district court bench in those counties. I think part of the issue with e-courts is that you've got to have like a really healthy conversation about workflow in the clerk's office, in the DA's office, and in the judge's office. If like one of those workflow places is not kind of streamlined, then there's going to be an issue because things are just getting assigned sometimes to random judges. If we're not figuring out like as a bench, where is the issue? Like why is it taking 2 weeks to get a limited driving privilege signed? Then that problem is just going to keep recurring. But I think Haywood is, and by extension, the other counties in the West, I think that there is a real probably opportunity to kind of to make e-courts a positive just because of the level of communication. Like they're very open, and the Haywood County clerk's office is just killer. So, I mean, I do think that it's one of those places where e-courts could actually, all of the negativity that you hear might be like, man, what the, this is going great. So,
Yeah, TBD, right? Like,
yeah, TBD.
like somebody sent out like a bar, like a 200 and however many recipient email to like the whole bar, and it was essentially like, "Oh God, here it comes." And one of our judges actually took time out of their day to respond back, saying like, "Hey, we're gonna figure this out.
Yeah.
Like I believe in us, and we'll get through it." And like that's the kind of bench we have here.
Yeah, I think that's the positive mindset too that you have to send, because otherwise you just get into this like, oh, this is definitely not going to work right from the outset. And it's that like kind of self-predicting prophecy, of like, this is just going to go horribly. Whereas when you have that kind of positive framing of it, I think that really does help.
So yeah, so I know you said no, let's not go into e-course, and so I definitely don't want to talk about it. I know we set up the accounts and everything. I personally am looking forward to it because I love filing. Like when we have federal cases,
Yeah.
I love being able to e-file. It's amazing. And
Yeah.
so, and the other side gets it immediately, like
Yeah.
in terms of cost, like cutting down on postage costs, like
Yeah.
for all filings, it simplifies so many different things. So I'm going to look at it as hopefully a positive. There's going to be growing pains.
Yeah.
Unless you did that.
Well, and I
So,
also think, I mean, especially as you, in a practice where you're covering that much ground, we were talking about before the podcast started, cases out in Cherokee, down into Polk, up into Yancey County. I mean, big square mileage,
yeah.
place. I mean, that, a lot of counties. I mean, that's probably what, 14 or 15 counties in that stretch. I mean, that's a lot of ground to cover. And so again, I mean, I just think that with certain things, it's kind of like, why not be able to just file it as opposed to having to have, a 2.5 hour one-way trip to go, send a discovery request or whatever it might be.
Yeah, like that, I would definitely look forward to that. I guess on the flip side of that, I know a lot of us in smaller counties, it's kind of nice sometimes though to be able to hide behind, oh, I never got that because I know a lot of,
Yeah, that's such.
not me, never me, but I've heard a lot of
Yeah.
lawyers or DAs will go
Yeah.
like, "Did you file that? I never got it." And like, you wonder how a case takes, 2.5 years to get
Yeah.
like documents for trials because it took 20 months to quote complete discovery, and
Yeah.
it's just because nobody wanted to actually sit down and do it, probably. But in all honesty, like it's just so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting. So I'm kind of looking forward to it.
Well, to
But I think
shift,
good.
go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say like I don't think the one thing that won't probably like e-filing won't really change much of is still, I'm sure it was like this for you when you were probably more of a out on the road like I am with so many counties. I know I still see you in distant counties from time to time, but being able to text a lawyer, the prosecutor I know up in Yancey County, or text a prosecutor down in Henderson, or text the one in Murphy, or the ones here in Haywood or Jackson, or even the ones in Buncombe that we go and do. It's like being able to have that personal relationship
Mm-hmm.
with a prosecutor is kind of everything for a defense attorney. And I think that's probably, one of the most valuable things that I've built up is, relationships. That the relationships between the bench and the relationships between the prosecutors, because if there's a relationship built around trust and mutual respect, you can actually get a lot of stuff done, and they will do more to help you get in and out quicker, which is everything for guys who are on the road a lot like me. When I have 2 or 3 counties, like Monday, I think I have to have, Buncombe, probable cause court, Buncombe Superior, and then in the afternoon I'm trying to return hearing in Murphy. And it's like, I'm dreading Monday, but I know I can go and knock out what I need to really quick in Buncombe District, and then I can pop upstairs to Superior, say what I need to say, and then get on the road and start driving across the
Yeah.
state to go and try my case in the afternoon. And it's like, without those kind of relationships, doing that is like impossible. Like, I don't know many lawyers who would go, that sounds like something that I either A, want to do, or B, I can do. But I think when you run a practice like mine, which my practice, the way I've tried to build it out is we try and give out the highest level of service, be as responsive as we can to clients, and push their cases, if need be, as fast as we possibly can. And I think that those, going back, it's just those relationships that you develop early on in your practice or throughout the years is really kind of what makes or breaks you as you get older in your career, I think.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think most of us in the defense world just, kind of recognize the power of those relationships. I would say specifically with the ADAs that are kind of the ones running, whether it's district or superior. Do you have any like kind of practical or anything that you can think in terms of like a specific example of how you've built up some of those relationships? Because I think everybody recognizes that that is important. And I just from seeing you interacting with DAs in various counties, you can definitely see that there is a rapport with the DAs. So do you have any kind of like practical advice in terms of how to actually develop that relationship? Obviously, this is not like sales or something that is just like a technique, but what has kind of worked for you in terms of that development?
I think a long time ago, because well, when I was growing up, I started working full time when I was 15 in like the restaurant industry. And I learned that, like, if you want to connect with somebody, if you want to get a good tip or whatever it is, you kind of need to meet them at their level, wherever that is, and just try and tap into your own empathy. And I think a lot, like I'll notice a lot of younger defense attorneys or just, defense lawyers who don't care, they kind of just treat the DA, the prosecutor, as you're here to service me and get me out, and it's a sense of like entitlement.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's very true.
I try and build like a personal relationship with these, with all of them, because they're people just like I am, and getting to know somebody and getting to a point where like you can care about their problems personally, or you're sharing their personal victories. You may fight like hell in the courtroom, and that's good. But afterwards, I shook hands with the prosecutor yesterday and thanked her for working out an extremely difficult case. There was a B1, like I said, and it came down to 41 months. And it took months and months of negotiation, multiple office visits, talking. But in the middle of all that, you talk about things that they like,
Yeah.
or they're important to them as people, because it builds that sense of, I guess, it builds you out more three-dimensionally as a person, right? They
Yeah.
don't look at you as just another jackass defense lawyer who wants this and they want to continue the case and da 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 da. You're not a number anymore, and you become a person. And I think treating prosecutors with respect, don't just get pushy with them. You know, don't give them a hard time with the judge. It's easy to do with a certain judge in Buncombe County who likes to really, really ride prosecutors. And I've never in my life seen so many young men look so broken after this one judge. It's amazing, and I always take just put my hand on their back and be like, "Man, I'm so sorry. Like, I hope your next week you draw a different courtroom or something." Because it's like, and the funny thing is I'm sure they're okay, but whatever it is, I think from a defense attorney perspective, like being able to humanize your opposition and realize that you're not really working together, but you have to at some level work together to just get through the day. Like anyone who's sat in district court all day waiting on a trial, like, right, like you'll get there at 9, you have to do the calendar call, you have to tell the judge how ready you are for this trial, and da 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 da, and then you're going to be sitting there until 3 o'clock when the
Yeah.
judge is ready to try your case. And so it's like, you know using that time wisely to just try and cultivate relationships and friendships that are beyond just whatever it is that you're going to be
Yes.
arguing about in the future is important, I think. And it lets you be able to send a text like, "Hey man, I'm running late," or "Would you mind just giving this client a new date? We'll send in the motion. I'm sorry I can't be there." And it doesn't mean the answer is always yes, but it doesn't mean that they're going to throw you under the bus. And I think that's really important in terms of what we do, because a lot of the times I can't be in 3 counties at once.
Yeah, 100. Yeah, no, I think that's incredibly important, particularly for the road warriors that have to depend on that relationship. I think, a lot of us, or at least, at our firm, kind of similar to you, we put a lot of that thought process into, not treating your client like a file, but treating your client like a person. But I think it's a lot easier to forget to do that with the prosecutor. I think there's a lot of emphasis on, developing that attorney-client relationship during law school. And then obviously, whether you're in private practice or in the public defender's office, I think a certain amount of like cultivation of the relationship with the client. But I think that relationship, and we always talk about how you need to be nice to clerks, which is absolutely 100% like, definitely you need to do that. But I do think that the district attorneys a lot of times kind of get like left on the back burner in terms of like where is the amount of time. And I think one thing that you just pointed out for the DA that's in district court with a heavy docket, their attention is getting pulled in a million different directions, and they're being asked to do things and push papers and respond to this particular person, and everybody is demanding their time. So I think that when you actually kind of get your moment with that DA, and instead of the first thing being like, this case is for plea, this is a continuance, just being like, how's it going, man? It's a busy day. This is you got quite the courtroom going on. Can I do anything for you? Right? Can I take a file up for you? I think being able to, like you were just really well describing, like kind of take that human element into account of, there's a lot of demands on a prosecutor's time. And if you just appreciate that, like what a taxing job that is, I would hate it to be a prosecutor. I used to think that's where I would want, like, when I left law school, that's where I was hoping to go. I applied to like 30 different prosecutors' offices. Like that's where I wanted to be. And looking back on it, I'm just like, I would have I can't multitask. I would have died in district court. I would have literally like mentally just been cooked. I had no idea what being a, low level, traffic ticket, DA, like, I mean, again, every job is important. So I'm not saying that to minimize, but that's where I would have started out, and I would have burned out in like a couple of months. I'm not lying about that. It would have been awful.
No, for sure. Yeah, and it's interesting because they have so much to do. And they're being, you got a stack of lawyers who are lined up, all wanting to talk about a case or tell you whatever crappy story we have about why I wasn't possibly driving this car and didn't possibly drink, that fifth of liquor that was empty behind the driver's seat, and found outside the vehicle, so can't even prove a prima facie element. So, and then you got, a certain unnamed judge yelling at them, beating them mercilessly, asking them why they screwed this up so badly and what's the next date. And it's funny because I look at a lot of times I look at Bunkum's dockets, right? And I'll look at I'll hear a prosecutor complain about their docket size, and I was like, man, you got like 37 cases. And I go to Haywood District Court, and there's 187 cases.
Yeah.
And it's
And they're
like,
done by lunch.
yeah, they're done by lunch. And it's like, but it's just totally, there's two different worlds. And I think a lot of struggle for a lot of lawyers is like, what's his name? Awesome guy, I love him. John Pritchard just left the U.S. Attorney's
Oh
office.
yeah, John's great.
And I've known John since I think he was in Bunkum's DA's office, and said I've worked and we tried cases against each other in federal court. But I've been trying to send him some cases. I was talking to him one day in court in Haywood County. I was like, "How's it going, man?" He's like, "This is awful." He's like, "This is the most inefficient shit show I've ever seen." I'm paraphrasing. You probably didn't say that. Like, to the effect that I can't believe courts run like this. I'm like, yeah, you've been in federal land for too long.
Yeah.
You have specifically docketed times, and people are there, and if they're not there, they're held in contempt. And I've gotten a fine from Judge Ridinger because I was in Judge Young's courtroom and she wouldn't let me go to federal court because she wanted to start a DWI trial. And that's the kind of, the differences are so vast, right? And so like practitioner like me who does tribal court, state court at all levels, and then you have federal court, it's like I have so many people that I rely on, from clerks, judges, prosecutors, and other defense bar members, to help me get through my week each week. It's daunting to look at. Like, my staff of like send me an email like send me what you're going to do on Monday because you have to be in 5 counties. How are you going to do this? I'm like, don't worry. It's the more counties, the better, almost, because it's like at that point I can only commit to so much, and so we can narrow the scope and narrow the field, and we know, your brain just starts to process, how am I going to solve this problem as efficiently? Which clients are the highest priority, and which relationships do I need to draw from to get the job done? And for me, like, I value those relationships that I've built over the years more than probably anything else outside of my staff. Because of course, like my paralegal's been with me for I think 8 or 9 years. So you can't get, I've learned the lessons over the years, like your staff, relationships that you build with other attorneys, judges, and prosecutors are kind of everything. Like,
Yes.
it's our job is relationship building. And like you're saying, like, about how you want to treat the client, of course, as a person, and kind of understand where they're coming from as a person. That's important. But I think a lot of lawyers kind of forget, like, everyone you work with, you need to do that with.
Yeah.
Not just the client, or not just certain people, it's everybody, because unless you realize the value of everyone, you're never going to unlock your potential to kind of maximize what you can get out of yourself and what you can get out of your business in terms of results for your clients. Because at the end of the day, what we do is supposed to be, and it should be, and it is, client focused services, right? So everything I do in terms of relationship building or drawing on is to give my client the best results. And sometimes we'll get clients ask us, why should we choose you? You're asking us to pay an incredible sum of money. All these lawyers are asking us to pay an incredible sum of money. What makes you better than, you're gonna have Thomas Amberg on later. Like, what makes you better than Thomas Amberg or Joel Shackett or Jake Minnick? Like, why should we hire you over any of these other guys who are more experienced, more qualified? Like Amberg, he worked in the DA's office for a number of years, and it's not that I tell them, well, I'm a board certified specialist. You can tell them that, but what does that mean to anybody, right? But it's, what I tell them is, I've done all these cases. I've done a lot of these cases, but what you're really paying me for here in this particular county with this particular case is the relationships and knowledge that I can draw from that I don't know that these other guys have. It's not that they're bad lawyers. I know each one of them will do an amazing job with your case. But the thing I think that if you're asking me to distinguish is, I know these people.
Yeah.
I know the sheriff's deputies. I know the officer that charged you. I know the clerks, I know the judges, I know the prosecutors, and I will put you in the best position to either try the case or put you in the best position to negotiate based on whatever we find once we get into it. And I think that's, if that was a sales pitch that I have with certain types of clients, that's it. Because, I've only done this for 12 or 13 years. I can't remember how long I've been practicing, but I'm not, I haven't built as successful of a large firm as you have, and I don't have Ambergy's DA office experience, right? Or those relationships in Buncombe. Like, Thomas can rely on all those old friendships in Buncombe more than I ever could. But I think it's like, where do we all find our niches? And for me, in my career, it's been relationship building.
Yes.
And having people believe me that I'm a good lawyer in terms of trying a case. Like, DAs know it, judges know it. I can sit down and try a case really well, hopefully, at this point. But also just, they like me. So
Yeah.
being likable is important, right? Like, like, some lawyers are damn good trial attorneys, but everyone hates them. Like, they just, you know what I mean? Like they just see their crashing face and just hate them.
Yeah.
But they're good trial attorneys. But I think, for me, the way that I've built out my practice, if there was like my secret to success, is just kind of relationship building generally. So
Yeah, man, a lot of things to take away from that. I think first of all, maybe we can come back to this here in just a minute. Like, I think success is something that we really do have to somewhat define for ourselves, because I think it is, you kind of just offered the comparison to our firm or to Thomas. I think there's a lot of this kind of like potential looking around at the at the landscape and saying, that would be ideal, or, I haven't hit this level of growth yet. And yet we all like kind of have our own metrics for success. And I think that looks different depending on kind of what you are building towards, and more importantly, like towards like what your personal goals are, right? Like our businesses should really be kind of driven at fulfilling those personal goals, whether that's, where we want to spend our time, our financial goals, our kind of what we want to be working on within the business. I mean, I think all of those things need to be really driven towards our individual goals. But I think in terms of that sales pitch to the client, I hope people are taking notes on that, because I think that is such a, whether that is maybe your particular, pitch in terms of, for anybody listening, like that kind of resonates, or figuring out how you answer that question. Because I think we've all been answered that question, and I've been answered that a couple of times where it was like, I don't know what the answer, really is. And then fortunately, like you start to like kind of dive into what is your answer to that question. So for us, like it's very much like we are focused on DWI, and so maybe it's a little bit of a different pitch when it comes to a traffic ticket that we actually get involved with. But for DWI, it's like, this is what we focus on. We have team trainings that are kind of geared towards this, our staff is, highly skilled with these type of cases because they're seeing this, volume. So it's very much, kind of case specific driven. But if you don't have an answer to that question of like, what makes you as a lawyer best suited to handle this case, then you're in a bad spot. So I think just even recognizing like that particular question and the importance of that question and having a great answer to that question is such a critical viewpoint. So to kind of shift to that kind of like individual vision of success, I think most people, when they say, like, what do you, how do you picture your firm, or what is kind of, what are you moving towards? Where are you, what are you growing into? People have different visions of what that looks like. Sometimes that's, well, I want to have, more team members. Sometimes that's, I want to have like a bigger, revenue number at the end of the year. Sometimes it's, I want to be, a member of these prestigious organizations. But in terms of your firm's kind of growth and development over time, what have you kind of used as like the metrics of success? Is it kind of being able to be more selective in case type? Is it, freedom in terms of time? What has kind of growth and success look like, particularly on your end, Josh?
I think honestly, that's probably the hardest thing for me to define, for me personally. And every year I try and check in on what is my goal with the business, and what are my goals personally. I have family. How am I going to better meet their needs, take care of them? And they kind of come before the business, but it can't really come too far before the business, because the business supports all of us, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And so it's really tough to define that. I think, well, you mentioned earlier, I for a very brief moment in time worked as a Minnick Law employee, and you asked me to set up, Haywood County's office for you guys, and be your Western presence here. And at that time, I had done 2 years working for one of the larger firms in Western North Carolina, and they had just dissolved. And I had done about 9 months on my own, and I had actually done pretty well. But I met you, and Jake, you're a very charismatic guy. Like, people are drawn to you for whatever reason.
I
Maybe
sold hard, Josh.
yeah, but you pitched well. I'll give you that. Like, you gave a good pitch, because at that time and moment in time, I don't even know how many years, like 9 years, 10 years ago, however long it was. You had a defined vision plan for yourself and where you're going to take the business. And I'm sure all plans change, right? Like, over time. But
Yeah.
to a large extent, I've tracked you and your success over the years. And everything that you kind of outlined to me 9, 10 years ago or whatever it was, you kind of hit all those metrics. And we didn't really work out, and you can say whatever it is, if you want to, about whatever lesson you learned from
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I'll just dive in real quick because otherwise it may get lost. But yeah, Josh, that was probably you're probably the shortest lived lawyer at the office, and I think a couple, probably three. I can't remember if it was three or 4 weeks went by, and you very kindly sent me this nice. I was trying to find this letter actually before we got on the podcast because it was like one of the like kindest worded letters of resignation I've ever seen in my life. But it was basically like, this doesn't seem like a good fit, at the, kind of prior firm that you had been working at. I think that they had a pretty good, like, systematic structure set up in place for, intake and case process and those type of things. And that was, I would say, very much lacking on our end. We really were not using like a specific standardized case management process. It was very much like the Wild West for us from a process standpoint. And I would say, fortunately for me, instead of just walking away and being like, this isn't a good fit, you spelled that out and really kind of changed the way that we operated. Things got, slowly, but I would say somewhat immediately better in terms of our systems, primarily because it's like, we need this, we need this for the client's benefit, like for employees, lawyers at the firm. Like, we need a better system set up. So you definitely have like a lot of the credit for a better systematic process for us in terms of our case management system. I think it was not too long after that we adopted Clio, or started using Clio, and that was based again on this like gaping hole that you were like, this is, we just don't have a good case management process. So again, like, there was nothing but gratitude on my end for the way that you left, and again, just like the kindness with which you left, and the ability to be open and honest about, hey, here's some things that are lacking, like legitimately lacking in the business. So I have a lot of gratitude on that front.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And it was, like I said, I always admired like your vision in terms of where you knew back then. Even though I think one of my biggest gripes, that I don't know if I put in my letter to you, I think you guys are using like Google Calendar to like do things, and there were so many different users, and there was no
Oh, it
uniform.
was a mess. It was a mess. Yeah, yeah.
And
No.
it's like, just
We were
set up and
using Google
yeah,
Calendar, eye
just set up and do whatever you
contacts.
want to,
Yeah,
and
yeah. It was all over. I mean, we were piecemealing it all together. It was a mess.
so yeah, so like a lot of your necessary integral components to actually build out your vision weren't there, but your vision was always there. And I think for me as a practitioner, it's always been my struggle is to figure out like what is that vision for me as my business. And we did it for a while, then we hired on a couple of different attorneys over the years, and I've been back just being just by myself for probably like 5 or 6 years, because it's just easier. Like I don't know how
Mm.
you do it in managing multiple. Like, we have two staff, but it's like, how do you manage multiple different staff members at multiple different roles all across the state, because you have offices all over the place, and all the different lawyers, the egos, the needs, the HR policy, like there's so many hats that you wear. It's incredibly difficult, and to still go into a courtroom, practice law, and be not only good at what you do but excellent at what you do is difficult. But I think for me, like trying to define where do I fit, what do I fit my vision into, and I've always struggled with that. So I don't really have a good answer, because I think every year, I look at our numbers, and we always improve by 10 or 15% growth on the year prior, and we've done that since we started. Um, and some years have been way more than 15% or whatever. And it's like, I've always kind of used just our numbers as
Yeah.
as a metric of success, but I think it's just a very business oriented way to look at it, right? Like any other
Yeah.
corporation, you look at what is the gross revenue versus the overall expenses and the costs, and then what's the net profit, right? Like, and that's like a very business oriented way to look at it. But I think kind of going back to what I spent a lot of time just ranting about, so thanks for letting me rant. But I think what I spent a lot of time talking about was just the relationships and talking about it now. I think with you, I think that's the way I would define like my success is
Mm.
just how many relationships I have and what I can do for myself and my business and my clients. As a metric of personal and professional success is just the relationships that I've been able to create and cultivate over the years. But I think looking at vision, it's really hard for someone who's solo like me to decide, and I've been looking like, where do I want to expand in terms of market? And like I already go to so many different places, but do I really want to like you do with your DWI focus? Do I want to narrow this thing all the way down and really like specialize? Like I'm a board certified specialist, but who cares versus like, the Minnick DWI guy kind of person. It's like, what niche do you want to fit in and can the market sustain that niche? And out west, what I've learned over the years is no. If you can, maybe there's lawyers who can. It's not me. I haven't done it long enough, maybe, but I think kind of trying to narrow that scope and trying to figure out where do I want to grow and how much do I want to spend to make that growth happen. I think that's the toughest part for any lawyer business owner, which is this is where I want to grow. This is how much I want to spend, and do I actually think I'll get a net return on it? And for whatever, I don't know what your numbers are for all these different offices, but it seems like you guys have made it work. And so kudos to you. That's awesome. And so I think for me, we're still trying to figure out where do we want to spend the money? How do we want to grow it? And do I have to finally bring on more staff again? And that's always like the toughest
Yeah,
position.
that is. Oh, that is. Yeah,
Being staff is just it's so hard to find good people. It's hard to find good
Mhm.
lawyers. And then just the overhead that comes with that. Like, it's not just the salary, it's the benefits, it's the taxes, it's everything. And so you're going to eat a lot of your net profit for however many months or years until you start to really gain it back and hopefully double it based on the investment you're making in people. And again, I guess it all ties back into relationships, right? Because you have to pick the right people
Yes.
and cultivate the right
Yeah.
relationships. Otherwise, you're just throwing huge chunks of money down the drain on no return. So
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the, kind of openness of that answer, but also just the insight because I think a lot of lawyers again just have a difficult time figuring out where is success measured. Is it measured in kind of like, growth of people at the office, which comes with, as you just described, like a ton of headaches, and I think that's probably one of the biggest like bang your head against the wall moments for anybody that has gone through a hiring process and onboarding process and had somebody, that was like their go-to right-hand person leave. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do now? Like, I've got all of this infrastructure set up for this individual and that like, where do I go next? I mean, I think that is definitely got its own set of headaches or financial success. But I think, to me, one of the things that, you hear a lot from people again in any profession, but I would say in the legal profession and criminal defense attorneys specifically, you deal with a lot of people that are going through burnout. And I think, if you enjoy what you are doing, and I think if your mode of operating as a practitioner is primarily relationship driven, you very likely are having a much higher kind of uh, enjoyment level. I don't know like what the right word would be, but
yeah,
just kind of like, level of really loving what you do when it's relationship based. And I think that there is a freedom that comes along with that. It's a in terms of like investing in your business, you can invest in people, you could invest in, office space, you can invest in a lot of things. But if you invest in relationships, that is something that you do get a reward from down the road. I would say probably financially, but more importantly, like just from enjoyment level side of things. And it takes a ton of work. Like it's not easy building relationships, but I think that that is something that really should be on the priority list of, as I'm looking to, grow or develop my office, where should I be putting time, resources, energy, and relationships? I think is one of those things that does not get on the list very often. And I feel like you've kind of really helped paint the picture of why that's an important investment.
I think so. And I I challenge myself every year to come back with a better plan of growth and things like that. And it's just, I think for me, it's really hard because my caseload is so high
Yeah.
and I'm pulled in so many different directions. And it's really hard for me to carve out, an hour to do this with you during the middle of the day. But it's a lot of fun. I think, I think, what I like about you is you've always been somewhat of a really big picture person. And, it's you put a higher priority onto, it seems like, at least I have no idea, but it seems like you put a lot of priority a long time ago on this is a huge goal. I may not know how to get there, but I'm going to keep pushing for it and I'm going to keep poking at different avenues until I find the ones that work and we're going to trip and we're going to fall, but we'll just keep plowing ahead until we get there. And it's just kind of that like grit determination to make it work no matter what, right? And it's not that I don't have that. I think it's just the way my life's set up personally. It's just like it's so like that is so much of a commitment that I don't know that
Yeah.
I could do what you do, which is why I always respected what you've done because it's an incredible amount of work to build out to where you guys have. And sometimes I think I'm just happy just being solo because it's like I don't have to manage. I've managed lawyers and it's like herding cats at times because like
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, and
um
I appreciate that, Josh. But I also do think it is a there's not a one size fits all when it comes to business, and I think that there's a reason why certain models work better for different people. I mean, it's you just have a different kind of like onboarding and training structure when it comes to potentially teaching associates how to handle traffic tickets versus how to handle, like you were just talking about, B1 felonies. I mean, that just you can't really there's just a difference in terms of like what that looks like in those two different worlds. And so I don't know that every criminal defense practitioner, every lawyer is kind of better served by a bigger firm. And so again, I think that's part of the and I would say in the criminal defense world, a lot of the happiest, most fulfilled lawyers that I've met have been solo attorneys. And so again, I think that there is just a different, I think if we were trying to like put success in a box and say, this is the only place that, success works, that's problematic because if you do enjoy, going to bat in the courtroom for a client, that's okay. Like, I mean, maybe that's the best and highest use of your time. If you enjoy, relationship building and you can figure out a way to kind of spend more time doing that thing and delegating maybe other tasks at the firm to somebody else, great. But I think that really the beauty of practicing as a criminal defense lawyer, and certainly this has been the case for me, is to kind of find what you're most excited about in terms of the practice, and then just really dive all in on that. Because I think there are too many great lawyers that hit burnout because they kind of haven't found that area or set of areas within the office, that set of hats that really brings joy.
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's my paralegals tell me I need to get off.
All right.
So,
We'll wrap it up here in just a minute
but
then.
yeah, I think that's it. And like you said, like I enjoy relationship buildings. I enjoy colleagues, and I look around and I see the lawyers who I think are the most successful are the ones who are one just great attorneys. They know the law, they know how to argue it, and they know how to issue spot, and then they also know how to maintain relationships. And get it done. And I think a lot of lawyers hit burnout really quick, over the years, or just based on their caseload, because they don't enjoy meat grinding the same types of cases.
Yeah.
And it is different. Like, a Superior Court judge in our district asked me to do court appointed work like 8 or 9 years ago. And I did it for, we quit taking court appointed cases about 3.5, 4 years ago. And we only take capital defender cases for court appointed work anymore. But that really burned you out. Like, I remember
Yeah.
I did 19 different Superior Court dispositions from 2 to 5 in one afternoon.
That's
And
crazy.
like
Doesn't
a
even
record.
seem possible.
I know.
That's crazy.
It was fun because it was like, I was like, that's a record. But,
Wow, that is crazy. I
yeah,
can't even imagine that.
you just burn out after a while doing
Yeah.
the same types of cases, the same types of clients, the same types of issues. And I think that's what I've enjoyed most about being solo, and over the last several years, is the freedom. You kind of mentioned that.
Yes.
Is the freedom to select what cases. I don't have to take, this was assigned to me, it's mine, I have to deal with it. I'm ethically and legally responsible for this person. I can say no. And having that autonomy and freedom, I think, has been a really big blessing. And it makes driving to Murphy, at least it's a good fee, but it's also, I know at the other end of it, I know the lawyer I'm going to be, arguing against. I know the judge that I'm going to be in front of, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm not looking forward to the drive, but I'm looking forward to actually getting to have fun in a trial with two people I enjoy being around.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been like the nicest thing for me, being solo, in the far western counties, is those relationships, because it's the one thing that really keeps you coming back. I mean, I'm always amazed at how much we earn this far west. I would have never imagined that would have been possible to make, what we can gross out here. But I think that's what makes me do it, because otherwise, without those relationships and without that fun element, like, yeah, you hit burnout really, really quick.
Yeah.
It's just not worth it. Like, I see Curtis Sluter, which I love Curtis. He's one of my favorite people.
Oh, he's
But
great.
he
He
loves it.
loves it. Oh, he loves it.
He loves driving. He loves the clerks. He loves
He failed his dream job for
He
sure.
loves it, and he loves
Yeah.
those relationships. And Curtis is happy doing it. And I think
Yes.
that's the one thing with like lawyers is like, just don't pick something you can't do anymore without putting a smile on your face. And if
Yeah.
it doesn't put a smile on your face, then stop doing it. Right. So
Dude, that is the best advice. I love it. And great way to end. Appreciate very much, Josh, you taking the time to
yeah,
share
absolutely.
with the audience. It's really good to hear that.
Awesome. Well, Jake, it's good to see you again as always. And I'm always pulling for you, and I'm always watching your success and waiting for that check that I'm inevitably going to get, right, from the Minnick Law Firm.
The systems man. Yeah. Same to you, Josh. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care. See you.
All right. Bye-bye.